All right, so got my caliper on. I'm going to go ahead and hit the 0 if things aren't at 0. I could model this in metric or in inches, so I'm going to do it in decimals of an inch. Be sure you take some notes on this. And I'm going to go ahead and get my length here. Looks like it's about 4.46. So I'm going to go ahead and start this off. So I'm going to model this from the top, and I'm going to choose to do not a regular rectangle, corner rectangle. I'm going to choose to do a center rectangle right here. I'm going to click on the origin. This is the 0, 0 origin, and I'm just going to kind of just basically, you know, get it right there. So now that I got that, I'm going to go ahead and put some dimensions on. So this one right here is going to be 4.46, and then I'm going to measure the top view. I'm the top. I'm going to measure this guy, and this is going to be, call it 2.78. So 2.78. Okay, right here, 2.78. Oops. Off by 1 decimal point there. 0.278. That's better. All right, so I got those two things dimensioned from the top view, and then if we look at how high this is dimensioned, it's 0.501. Now normally I would, let me just real fast. So I go to extrude, and it's 0.5. I'm actually going to go negative 0.5. I'll explain that later. But all right, so here is how it's looking. Now, it would have been faster. I could have done this, I could have designed this with, I could have designed this in one sketch with this on sketch 1 and this on sketch 1. It would have been faster, but I decided not to do it that way, just so that I want to make sure before you guys get deep into a sketch, I want to really emphasize that it's really important to make sure that your part's oriented right. Like when I look at the front view, this is looking right. Like again, these surfboard fins, this is the front view, right? Front view. And so I want to make sure before I get started that this is kind of oriented right before I get too deep into it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sketch on this face here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and draw in this little, there's like a kind of a triangle thing here. I'm just going to draw it in. And then over here, there's lots of ways to do this, but there's basically a slot over here like that. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm doing this thing and that. Okay, so now I just kind of drew it in as I saw it, and so now we're going to put some dimensions in. Okay, so as far as this area here, it looks like I would say it's hard to get exact, but we'll just call it it's 0.228. So if I go here to Onshape, we know that if I do dimension, that from here, this line, to this line is 0.228. Okay, then if I measure how far off the bottom it is, so how far off the bottom it is, 0.160. I'm just kind of doing this in slow steps. So dimension tool, so I know that From the bottom to right there is 0.160. And then I could use, go like this here, measure how thick this is, like that. It's 0.181. Okay, so that's what that is. So 0.181. All right, so from this line to this line is 0.181. And all right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do a fillet. And if I click on this, I can hold down my mouse on this, and I can just get it to where it looks good. Kind of wing it there with that. So click away from there, and so this is fully dimensioned. Okay, I don't care about how far from here to here because it's already figured out. So now back on this side, got to do something similar over here. So I was to measure how far. So it's about 0.144 off the bottom. So dimension this. So from this point here to this point is 0.144. And if I measure how far it is from the top, call it 0.184. So from the top, from this point to this point, 0.184. And then we need one more dimension. We have to know, actually I guess two more dimensions. We want to know how far in this guy goes. About 0.075. So it goes in 0.075. So from this point to this line is 0.075. And then we have to know one last dimension, which is how far off is that inner triangle from a point like the bottom. So looks like it's 0.210. All right, so we're about done with this. So from this point to that line is 0.210. Check this. And we can double check it. So should be 0.208. There it goes. Okay. So once I got both of these things here, I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to click on the extrude button, and I'm going to click remove and make sure that both this, one second here. Oh, I know I did wrong. One second. I got it. I'm going to close up these sketches here, which I forgot to do. So I'm going to go ahead and make a closed sketch there. So that's now a closed loop. And then back over here, the line tool, make sure they're closed. Okay. So now, click on extrude, click remove. I don't have to click, they're both selected, but if one wasn't, I would click the other one. So they're both going to be done like that. Okay, so that's good. Now one thing that's kind of cool is that with the fillet, which takes hard corners and makes them rounded, you can do this. I either in the sketch or in the feature. So, for example, if I want to do this, let me try it like 20 thousandths. Maybe do like 30 thousandths. So there, and I could also do this line here. So I could make those rounded. And then likewise, I could also make these guys similar as well. I can make this be a different amount, and that one. So maybe see how 30 thousandths look. Maybe a little bit more for this one. Could have done all four at the same time as well. Okay, so we got that, and it's looking pretty good. So I think this part is model, which is really important. We will, maybe another time, we could do these little cuts in here, some of the markings and stuff. This might make it to have less friction because these are cut away, and also make it a little bit lighter. And just to move on more quickly, also I want to tell you with the fin, today we're just going to kind of do a basic fillet around the whole thing, but later, if you notice, there's more taken out in this area than out here, so it's kind of like a airplane wing in a lot of ways. And but today we're just going to do a basic fillet. So I want to go through that. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new sketch. So a new sketch, I'm going to do it from the front plane. And I'm going to use the spline tool. So notice it's snapping there because earlier I did a negative extrude, so I have this here. You know, the more times you click the spline tool, the more. Now if I press the escape key here, I might have more options later because it's not all one continuous piece. So by doing it in separate pieces, you might find you have more control to do different things later on more easily. Okay, and like we've already gone over before, if you want to move these nodes, you can move them up high, down low, and then in and out. So you can definitely adjust this as you see fit. Okay, so you can see it's right there in the middle, which is kind of where I want it. So now if I go to extrude, I'll go to add, and maybe like 0.2, and I can also pick, let's see here, oops, I keep forgetting to close my sketches up here. Let me close this sketch up. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to add it, and I'm going to go, let's see how 0.2 looks. I can also pick a second direction. And so now it's going both directions, and I'll have it be an equal amount. And I can adjust these. Let's see, it looks like it's about 0.23, so I'll do about 0.1. Alright, so I got my dimensions on there. And so now it's definitely looking like more of a fin. And again, just for today, we're going to just do a simple fillet. And so I'm just going to pick this here, and pick this side, and pick this side, and probably a smaller number. Let's see. Just play with this number until you get it right. I'm about out of time on my video. All right, so with this fillet here, basically you just pick a number until it looks the way you want. The fillet does get more advanced. There's some different options here, which we'll go over another time. There's circular, conic, curvature, and then, of course, you can adjust the radius and a couple other things here. And if you want to learn more, of course, you could always go and just Google it, like Onshape fillet tutorial, and just learn all the little parts of it. But for today, we're just kind of keeping it simple. And again, we could choose to do this back part the same, or we could choose to do it differently. So that's how that works. So basically, we got our fin. You know, it's coming along, and again, you can use the fillet tool. I could decide that I want this whole face here to have a little bit of a fillet like that. So now you can see that all of that has a fillet. I can do the other whole face too. And so it's definitely coming along. All right, so again, if this is oriented right, this is my front side, so it's coming along. We'll do a more advanced fillet, kind of doing more of an airfoil shape from the top view. But just on a first video, I want to keep it kind of basic, I guess. And then we can always get more complicated.